Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Spencer Keck coming at you live from Tunnel Hills here in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. And I am running for Magistrate, District 3. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank. Now, boy, a lot of news today. And I thought I'd just go over some of the extremely interesting headlines. You know, again, the U.S. military says 2 strikes on alleged drug boats killed 5 in the Pacific. Did we gather any evidence from these boats? No, we made sure there is none. Did we go in and arrest people first, gather evidence, and then destroy these boats? No. We just killed people when we could have fast roped in, gotten evidence, proved that we're the good guys. But are we doing that? Nope. Sure aren't. Well, at the same time, the U.S. military just got $1 trillion for their budget. Trump signed it off without any fanfare. Part of that's because the Senate is demanding that Hegseth show the boat strike footage from when they did the quadruple strike. Originally, we heard it was a double strike or double tap. No, it was a quadruple tap on that boat where there were 2 survivors. That was supposed to be released if this was signed into law. This $1 trillion budget for the military. Think about that. Do we really think that they're going to turn it over to the Senate? Yeah, really. So, at the same time that all this is happening, we've got the Department of Justice, the federal government, demanding that states turn over voter data, all their voter data. Growing up, I used to hear a lot of stuff about how the GOP was the best party to protect us and to protect states' rights and to protect states from incursions by the federal government. That's all I heard preached growing up. The GOP will protect you from the federal government. They will be all about states' rights. And it was all about states' rights, states' rights, states' rights. But here we got one of the most egregious acts of the federal government in recent years, prying into our private information. No one should be turning over my data without my approval about my social security number, my date of birth, my street address. You go on down the line. I also used to hear growing up, hey, if you vote for anything but the big R, all your gun purchase information is going to be shared with the federal government, and they're going to come seize your guns. Right? It was all about, hey, we got to be scared of the federal government and them getting any of our information. But what are we doing right now? The federal government, the Department of Justice, is suing 3 states and DC because they say they're not going to turn over voter information data. Why should they? I remember my grandma telling me when she was voting and she got together with some of the women in her town, Eastern Kentucky, Morgan County, West Liberty, they decided that they were going to have a revolt. They were going to get rid of the nepotism and cronyism that always made sure that they got a school board elected that was going to put school administrators into office that didn't care about properly educating the kids, making sure that every kid in the county was on par with other counties in the state. So grandma and her women's club got together. They said, hey, we've got to do something about this, and only we can do it. Let's make a list of those people that we want to be elected for the school board. And they did it. They made sure that those people got on the ballot that they chose. And when the political machine tried to look over her shoulder or look over her curtain in her voting booth, she raspberried them. You know, this is my grandma that usually was all about Southern politeness or Hoosier politeness, because she was a Hoosier that married a Kentuckian. But not that day. Not when it came to her voting record and rights being infringed upon. She made sure that she hid who she was voting for from the folks that wanted to look at it and see if they approved of it or not. And she made sure, along with her women's club, that they got quality folks elected and that they totally revamped their schools and made them centers of excellence in Eastern Kentucky. And still to this day, neighboring county that my dad's from, their school's not rated as high as the schools in that small town that she did that in. So, you know, that stuck with me. My address, my social security number, and where all this information should not be something that can just go be looked upon and grabbed by any administration to see if they approve of whether I voted for them or not. And yet here we got the whole federal government now going to be looking at every single state's voter information. You know, it wasn't enough for Doge to go into all of our Veterans Administration records and get all of our information, social security numbers, illnesses, treatments, all of our wounds, all of our addresses. Did I say social security numbers? Did I say dates of birth, our names? Yeah. Doge got all that. That didn't stay in the federal government. That left. That's now Musk's property, Peter Thiel's property. And that's going to go into the database that they're keeping. If you think this is a good thing, and this is the GOP that we grew up with, I got something to tell you. And it's beachfront property right in Arizona. We can all go and have a beach Christmas there, because this is a bunch of hooey. You know, we have for years been told that a vote for Republicans is a vote for personal freedom. And yet every single day that's being eroded. Your freedom to marry who you want, to worship in the way you want. Because what happened this week also? Pete Kegsbreath decided that he was going to go through the Army chaplain and rewrite it for them. He decided that the 300 religions and religious sects that are listed in the chaplain corps, he's going to streamline that down to a handful. So freedom of religion, that's not for the military. That's not for the chaplain corps. He said it was too new age. Right? So we're going to go by what his church decides a religion should look like, a church should look like. No more freedom of religion for the military. No more religious rights. He's going to decide what your religion should sound like, look like, act like. We already know that he was going to do this when he decided that he was not going to allow certain religions, such as the Sikhs and others that believe men should be allowed to have facial hair. That's what his no shave policy was about. He wanted to make sure there's no more religious exemptions. We don't need those folks in the military, he believes. So personal freedom being eroded. And what are we doing? We're letting the millionaires, billionaires have their tax breaks, but giving up our personal freedoms, because this party's all about that, giving your personal information out every single day. So, take away your right to privacy, erode your religious freedoms. At the same time he's doing this, we've got 20% of America's naval fleet off in the Caribbean, off the coast of Venezuela, and over in the Pacific side, off the coast of Venezuela, blowing boats out of the water now. We've killed 100 people now, and none of them had the chance just to be apprehended. It's like I say, we did it. We went to that oil tanker that had a way larger crew than these little small outboard motored boats. And yet we didn't kill a single person on those oil tankers. So, we know we can do better. We can do more. But Pete Keg's breath, it's not enough that he's in the hot seat for the double tap that end up actually really being a quadruple tap. He's got to go and decide what the Army Chaplain Corps should be doing. Make those decisions for those religious leaders, religious liaisons in the Army. He said it was all too touchy-feely, make you feel good stuff. He doesn't like that. Well, you know what? Whether someone wants to have religion, doesn't want to have a religion, wants to have one different than mine, that's up to them. That is what I fought for when I fought for the First Amendment of the Constitution, which guarantees us those rights. When I fought for that Second Amendment, which guarantees I have the power to protect those First Amendment rights, and Third Amendment rights, and Fourth Amendment rights, and Fifth Amendment rights, and Sixth Amendment rights, Seventh Amendment rights, Eighth Amendment rights, Ninth Amendment rights, 10th Amendment rights, and on down the line. But I'm really extremely concerned about amendments that gave us our Bill of Rights, those first 10. And apparently, the only one we worry about is the second one. That one's important. I love it. I've taken part of it since I was about 3-4 years old. But that's not the only thing in our Constitution. That wasn't the only amendment. So we've got to do better. All right. Well, hopefully we know what's at hand. Killing our employment here in Hardin County with that big ugly bill, which got rid of the EV incentives and trashed a great economic powerhouse that we had right here in Hardin County. 1,600 people employed. We're trashing our farm businesses here in this state. We're making Argentina great again. And we're going to be making, apparently, Venezuela great again as soon as we can get their oil into our hands. All right, y'all. Just remember, as Don Henley said, dirty laundry. You know, don't want their dirty little secrets, dirty little lies. We got our dirty little fingers in everybody's pie. We love to cut you down to size. We love dirty laundry. And that's what is loved. But we got to get back to loving our neighbors as ourselves. Remember, we are our brother's keeper. We're our sister's keeper. We're all in this together. So have a Merry Christmas. God bless your corazón.